watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. The trucker syndicate at the port of Beirut launched an open-ended strike and closed all entrances to the facility. The Lebanese Health Ministry issues food safety guidelines for restaurants in the country. And an Egyptian court confirms the death sentence of 183 Muslim Brotherhood members despite human rights outcry. The trucker syndicate at the port of Beirut has launched an open-ended strike to pressure the government to permanently halt a controversial project. The syndicate closed the port's entrances, stopping all activities, as well as the transportation of merchandise in and out of the facility. The strike is a response to a proposal by the cabinet to fill the port's fourth basin to allow more space for storing containers. But port workers worry that it will put the jobs of 1,500 port workers, mostly truckers, at risk. Health Minister Wael Abou has issued guidelines for combating food corruption, including inspection checklists. As part of the government food safety campaign, forms of food samples and checklists will be distributed to various restaurants and supermarkets, as well as bakeries, and then checked by ministry inspectors. The minister stressed that once the forms are distributed, ignorance can no longer serve as justification for food safety violations, adding that he hopes the new guidelines will lay the groundwork for permanent procedures for food safety in the country. General Security Chief Major General Abbas Brahim has met with the commander of the UNIFIL, General Luciano Portolano. The meeting touched on the developments in the south after the Sheba operation, as well as the coordination between Lebanese security forces and the UN peacekeepers. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused the United Nations peacekeepers of failing to enforce the UN security resolution that bans Hezbollah from bringing weapons into Lebanon. In a phone call with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, Netanyahu blamed Iran for last week's violence that killed 2 Israeli soldiers and a Spanish peacekeeper. He claimed that the Security Council resolution that ended the 2006 war is not being implemented, and accused the UNIFIL peacekeepers of not reporting on weapons being smuggled into southern Lebanon. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri says political banners will be removed from Beirut in an attempt to promote harmony after an agreement has been reached between Hezbollah and the Future movement. Berri was quoted as telling visitors the Interior Ministry will remove all posters belonging to the Amal movement. The Future movement and Hezbollah will be removed from Beirut, Sidon and Tripoli. The cleanup campaign, which has been positively received on social media, is part of an attempt to diffuse sectarian tensions in the country and will reportedly begin next week. Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnouk says the new round of discussions between Hezbollah and the Future movement will be more than complex than the previous dialogue sessions. The minister said the next session will be difficult after Hezbollah leader Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's latest speech, where he said the rules of engagement between his party and Israel have ended. Mashnouk said the Future delegation will frankly express its opinion on Nasrallah's speech during the talks, which are expected to resume tomorrow, but stressed that the dialogue will continue despite the difficulties. Lebanon's Grand Mufti Sheikh Abdel Latif Deryan has left for an official visit to Cairo for talks with top political and religious leaders. Deryan will meet officials including the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar and the head of the Coptic Orthodox Church. An Egyptian court has sentenced 183 supporters of the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood to death on charges of killing police officers. The men were convicted of playing a role in the killing of the 16 policemen in the town of Kardassa in August of 2013. 34 were sentenced in absentia. The sentences are part of the harsh crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood after President Mohamed Morsi was ousted from office in 2013. Thousands of Brotherhood supporters were arrested and put on mass trials. And coming up next, an exclusive interview with the president of the Lebanon-Australia Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Fadi Zouki. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Fadi Zouki, OAM, is an Australian citizen of Lebanese origin who has set out to make a difference to the world around him. Over the past 25 years, Mr. Zouki has established himself as both a business and community leader. A lawyer, a prominent business developer and philanthropist, he has pursued his goals of enriching the lives of others and giving back to both the country that provided his family with refuge from the Lebanese civil war and the homeland for which his love will never wane. Prior to taking on the responsibilities of founding president of the Australia-Lebanon Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Fadi was asked to represent UMDP's Live Lebanon project as its Australian ambassador. Here's an exclusive interview with a successful Lebanese entrepreneur. Tell us about your work with the Australia-Lebanon Chamber of Commerce and how it is creating a positive impact in both countries.
First of all, I want to thank you, Linda, for giving me the opportunity to be interviewed by you. The Australia-Lebanon Chamber of Commerce and Industry is probably one of the most important organizations ever established in Australia that have a very positive impact on Lebanon and Australia alike. The purpose is to basically build a bridge between Lebanon and Australia. That bridge is to bring the two countries closer through economic activities. The positive impact, it has done a lot of good work since the inception of the Chamber. It has done a lot of seminars and activities and networking between the international business community, especially between Lebanon and Australia, through trade missions, through political exchanges, which encompasses the historical visit of the President of Lebanon to Australia exactly 2 years ago. The upcoming events are, one which is very important is a trade mission in March, which will encompass several Lebanese origin, including Australian wider community business people, accompanied by political figures that we will be engaging with our counterparts in Lebanon, including visits to the government departments, which will include but not limited to the Prime Minister of Lebanon. The intention again is to stimulate economic interest between the two nations.
You're a prominent businessman and you've successfully expanded your business to the UAE and Lebanon. Why should entrepreneurs invest in Lebanon given the current political crisis in the country and in the region?
That's a very good question, Linda. I think what we need to really bear in mind is that sometimes, if you like, unrest or lack of stability in the region could actually make the country fairly attractive for investments. And the reason being, for example, with Lebanon now, the property market drops substantially, which makes investments quite attractive. I know a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, the property market was quite high and made it almost expensive to invest. So even though there's lack of stability in the region, it does drop the market in terms of property down and does actually attract people from overseas to come and invest today more than ever. We used to think that tourism was the Europeans and the Arabs from the Gulf region. I think tourism really is also misconceived in our country. It's all the expats, it's all the diaspora, Lebanese diaspora that have been coming to the country, and we characterize them as tourists, but they're not really. They're coming back to see their families, they're coming back to invest in Lebanon, they're coming back to basically bring their kids to come and see their own motherland. So those don't tend to decrease. So I strongly believe that yes, of course, the lack of stability in the region and especially now that the problems we have in Lebanon, the security issues, yes, it will infect some people from coming, but we also, the majority know this is Lebanon and this is how it's been for a long time, and they'll still continue to come as long as we keep welcoming them and keep the hospitality standard up.
So you have hope in the country?
We have to be hopeful. We have to, and the reason being is if we were to become skeptical, then we have served the purpose of terror in the area. Okay, and the way we can fight terror is by being positive and let life go on as usual. And what's more important as well is the fact that we need to prevent economic terrorism to the country, because economic terrorism will impact the entire country. It will cause poverty, it will cause problems where people actually start being preoccupied with the militia and with a non-productive activities. And Therefore, we need not to fall into that trap that we did in the 70s.
You're also a philanthropist who's chaired several charitable committees. As a matter of fact, you're the Australian ambassador for UNDP's Live Lebanon project. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I strongly believe in philanthropy work. You know, it's every business and every company must have a social responsibility or a corporate responsibility, and that is to put back into the community, put back into the, especially with the underprivileged and those in need. In my case, I was privileged to join the UNDP Live Lebanon program as a goodwill ambassador. It is the UNDP is a fantastic organization that belongs to the United Nations. They are in Lebanon at the moment, focusing on rebuilding the Lebanese infrastructure, the youth, the environment, and more importantly also preserving Lebanese culture and heritage. And in my case, my job is to promote those activities of the UNDP through the Live Lebanon initiative, and to also try my best is to fundraise and from the private sector in order to assist the UNDP in actually attending to all those different requests that come from different municipalities in Lebanon.
How much is the Lebanese community in Australia actually involved in this project? What is their biggest contribution?
In terms of the UNDP Live Lebanon project, we have well and truly promoted that project across Australia, and we are trying very hard to encourage people, especially people where we are focusing on their villages, to actually contribute to their own villages in attending to the particular projects that we have adopted on their behalf.
I've read on one of your websites that one of your personal missions was to make the world a better place for members of the global community. So what do you think was your biggest achievements as someone whose mission is to make a difference in this world?
Looking back and remembering that there are people in this world who suffer. There's a lot of people in this world who need support, and I believe in good karma, that whatever you do to these people, it will come back in multiples. But more important to me, that is far more rewarding than the financial gain. And I've seen this happen in Lebanon. I have helped a lot of organizations in Lebanon that that deal with orphans to the disabled children. And I personally have taken on several also kids where I've actually supported over a period of time in Lebanon. And especially Lebanon got a very special place in my heart, because I know myself personally, I'm an orphan myself. I lost my mother when I was very young. I personally experienced the life of a refugee, and personally also seen this country unfairly being destroyed over and over and over again. And I think, and I find it almost like a mission for me. It's my own personal mission to come back to Lebanon and make a difference the way I did in Australia. And all we want is the Lebanon and its government to change. It's time to change. It's time to say no. It's time not to remain and get used to the situation in Lebanon. People must change.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. The trucker syndicate at the Port of Beirut launched an open-ended strike and closed all entrances to the facility. The Lebanese Health Ministry issues food safety guidelines for restaurants in the country. And an Egyptian court confirms the death sentence of 183 Muslim Brotherhood members despite human rights outcry. Those are your Monday headlines from us here at Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very nice evening.